So Germany and France still aren't getting the picture that you can't negotiate with Putin. Sweden and Finland want to join NATO. Turkey does not want that to happen. Big surprise there, with NATO actually wanting these two countries to join, except with the exception of Turkey. But Ukraine wanted to join? No, can't have that. This is all just, with as tragic and horrifying as what is going on in Ukraine, as true as that is, the way that these countries are handling this situation outside of Ukraine is just comical. You've got Macron and Olaf calling Putin, asking him to stop, telling him that it's his moral responsibility so that there's no global food shortage. Which, again, let's be clear, Ukraine's huge. It is somewhat of a breadbasket for Europe, but let's not get this twisted that the war in Ukraine is going to be the cause of global food shortages. Like, that's not true. You know, if it is true, I don't believe it, because it's kind of the same thing that's going on in the US with this baby formula shortage. I just don't understand the toilet paper shortage of 2020 or 2021, whatever. I get that one, right? Because people just lost their minds, and for whatever reason, the first thing that came to their head was like, oh geez, we're running out of supplies, go get all the toilet paper you can. Demand outweighed the supply, and then it just took a while to offset that. But I really don't understand how there's a shortage on baby formula. I have no idea. But regardless, back to the Ukraine situation. Yeah, they're calling up Putin, saying, you know, you've got this moral duty. Essentially, they're saying, you know, feel how you will about Ukraine, but you owe the world. Don't take it out on the rest of the world. Are you kidding me? Let's not divert from the fact that what Putin has set out to do in Ukraine is perhaps the most heinous act in modern human history. But to try to use morality in sparring some type of action out of Putin is mind-blowing. I'm gonna just have for those that are watching, I'm gonna pull up my Twitter here, because I believe I favorited or did something in regards to this. What was it? It might have been in a tweet or a reply, I think. And again, you guys, this episode, it's not a 1, 5, 10 challenge. It's not overrated, underrated. It's not my one-word opinions. This is just my roaming thoughts, okay? And again, of course, it's the war in Ukraine is still going on. That's where my brain is at right now with this. But and now, of course, I lost track of what I was saying. But oh yeah, about reaching out to Putin, right? Where did I have this? I didn't think it was that long ago, but anyway, we'll get to it. Really, what I wanted to make a point of is to try to I don't know, pull at Putin's heartstrings or appeal to him in an emotional way or outside of Ukraine is just mind-blowing, because the man has no interest in anything other than his own self-interest. And right now, I think he believes that means preserving Mother Russia, whether it's, you know, the Soviet Union or the Russian Federation. That's what he cares about. He does not care about helping feed other parts of the world. So first off, for these Western leaders to call on him, and that's the approach they take, is it's just dumb. I don't get it. I don't get how they're gonna sidestep what he's doing in Ukraine and then try to appeal to, well, the rest of the world is going to need food. Do you hear yourselves? Like, it doesn't even remotely like put in an effort. Like, just straight up tell the guy, listen, it's going to be a 100% exclusion from the rest of the world for Russia. No imports, no making payments in rubles, nothing. Well, I guess no imports, there's not going to be payments to Russia at all. Complete annexation of, is that the correct word? Annexation. The action of annexing something, seizing. Okay, that's not what I'm talking about. But basically, exclusion, that's what I'm looking for. A complete exclusion of Russia from the rest of global relations. That's what it's going to take. But again, who's in whose back pocket? Who is getting supplied their energy from Russia? There's so many blatant reasons that are so obvious, but it's like everyone's just going along with it, right? It's just super frustrating that that's the approach they were taking, was trying to appeal to that side of them. I don't know. I'm still dumbfounded at this, but yeah. So anyway, in other news, we've got Sweden and Finland want to join NATO, and up until a couple of days ago, it sounded as if NATO was going to welcome them with open arms. Which again, hello, what about Ukraine? I'm at the point where yes, Ukraine shouldn't join NATO. I really don't care. I personally don't care. I don't think that NATO really is much more than a status. It's like just another brand name that you can wear. But to me, it's just funny that Finland and Sweden, countries that have historically kind of minded their own business, now want to do this, where Germany and France, countries that have historically not minded their own business, they are wanting to tuck their tail between their legs and close their eyes and don't ask, don't tell type of thing. You know, it's again, to me, it's just mind-numbing what reality we live in. But Turkey President Erdogan, what is his name? President of Turkey. Erdogan. Anyway, President E of Turkey basically came out and said that he doesn't support Sweden or Finland joining NATO. And I'm probably wrong here, I don't know, but I thought that you needed unanimous consent or acceptance for new NATO members. But again, it's with that coming out and Turkey saying no, if my understanding of that is correct, that means that Sweden and Finland have no shot at it. But what has happened in recent days is that countries have come out and said, you know, we're gonna basically strike up a deal with Sweden and or Finland for protection, right? I don't know if it was the UK or the US, and I honestly can't remember if it was Sweden or Finland, but a pairing of those countries, basically once Turkey came out and said that, you know, we don't support Sweden and Finland coming in, US or UK had reached out and basically struck a deal with Sweden and or Finland saying, we're going to protect, you know, you'll have our backing if X, Y, and Z happens. And it's just wild that like this is happening And if you have studied history or you know anything about history in the past, essentially World War I started because a whole bunch of secret behind closed door deals and alliances were made. And then when one country got involved with another, then all of these countries that had secretly backed the other ones had to get involved. And so that to me is a weird parallel that's happening right now, is all these countries are trying to openly join NATO, which is, you know, a well-known alliance. But now, and these aren't secret ones that, you know, it was UK or US that was making with Sweden or Finland. It was, you know, how else am I going to read about it if it wasn't, you know, a secret, you know? So it's just funny that if NATO doesn't work out, then countries are still basically putting together alliances. And could we not have a repeat then of how World War I started? Like if Russia goes and invades Finland, but then the UK decided to back Finland, and then they send troops over, like it's just wild. And then you look at the World War II parallel that's happening right now, right? You have a just wild scenario where Putin is accusing Ukraine to be Nazis, but then, you know, the Russians are literally committing genocide on the Ukrainian people, and the rest of the world is essentially sitting there letting it happen. It's just a weird, there's just weird similarities between both World War I and World War II with what is happening right now between Russia and Ukraine, and that war. But another thing that I wanted to just kind of, I guess, verbally think out loud here, was with World War II. What was my thought on this? It was a World War II comparison. Oh, yeah. Okay, so again, when World War I ended, basically all the blame was thrown on Germany, right? And in my opinion, it was how World War I ended, which led to World War II. Essentially, it was Germany being completely stripped down, and this sort of resentment built up over the years, which resulted in a certain psychopath coming to power and the people rallying behind him. And, you know, we saw what happened in World War II. Look what happened with the conclusion of World War II to now. Essentially, the same thing has happened, but in Russia, okay? After World War II, again, let's not get this twisted. You had Russia was on the victor's side of World War II, right? And essentially, the US, and I think I said this in a past episode, essentially the US made a choice, the lesser of two evils, when they aligned with the Soviet Union in World War II to defeat Nazi Germany. Well, at that point, there was slaughter of people happening in Russia as well, okay? But it was essentially, okay, who are we going to worry about? Are we going to worry about Stalin, or are we going to worry about Hitler? And so it was, you know, the decision was Hitler, right? But it was kind of one of those things where, you know, the US had to essentially try to find what the best method was. And after the defeat of Nazi Germany, there are those, British and American alike, that believed we should have continued that war and finished with Russia. That's my personal opinion. I 100% think that should have happened, but it didn't. And so now this is where I'm saying the conclusion of World War I with Germany led to World War II. Well, the conclusion with World War II with Russia led us to the point that our world is in right now with Russia and Ukraine, where you took away, and it wasn't immediate, right? The Soviet Union didn't fall apart until 91, but essentially the Cold War, to me, the Cold War has been since World War II ended till, even right now. But the culmination of this in 91, when the Soviet Union fell, again, you see Vladimir Putin, who I don't quote me on this, but I thought he was in like Ukraine or Belarus or somewhere during the collapse of the Soviet Union. But either way, he sees his country upended, right? Hitler saw after World War I, similar situation, right? And ever since then, for Hitler, it was about building it back and, righting the wrongs and revenge and all this animosity that had built up. And again, I think it's the exact same thing with Putin. Putin saw what his country was, and ever since then, he played a lot longer game than Hitler, but Putin basically has been playing chess, right? The crazy thing now is his collapse, I think, is it's a lot more astonishing because it seemed as if he was so patient in his workings for rebuilding the old USSR, but since then it hasn't played out in his favor. It's wild to me. It seems like every time I read something in the news about whatever it is, whether it's NATO or response to Ukraine or pleading to Putin to end this, I just see so many parallels with what has happened in the last roughly 100 years, and I'm blown away that we're not taking what we've learned from the past and trying to apply it differently here in the present day so that we don't continue to repeat what we've done. I don't think anything that I'm saying is groundbreaking or honestly all that controversial. I don't know if I've clearly articulated how apparent I see the parallels between both World War I and World War II and right now. But yeah, it's pretty wild, and I don't know. It's frustrating. Maybe it's because I like history. I don't know. But yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull up again. If you're watching, awesome. If you're listening, I'll do my best to kind of illustrate what I'm looking at. Really, I've just pretty much had a picture of the map of Europe pulled up for a while, but I want to pop into my Twitter feed because again, I still haven't, aside from one or two or a couple offset things that I've liked on Twitter, my focus has been really what's been going on with Ukraine and everything encompassing that too. But except one thing that's kind of really just started to get on my nerves right now is the whole Palestine, Israel, I don't even want to call it relations, like dynamic. Earlier a couple days ago, I saw on Al Jazeera that it was a Palestinian American reporter for Al Jazeera was shot and killed by Israeli forces. And, I hadn't found something where I could say like it's been confirmed by me or whatever. But I read that this reporter was shot in the face by a sniper with full-on press gear, like I don't know if it's a bulletproof vest or if it's just like a tactical vest or whatever, but it says press on front and back. Okay, this is a fairly global, international, like if you see that, you know what that is, right? So there really shouldn't have been any mistake about it. Long story short, they were shot and killed. And I've been like following this, again, I don't even know what to call it. I've been following this conflict a little bit more closely now, and really it's because of Russia and Ukraine that I've been paying more attention now to Israel and Palestine, because quite frankly, I just am not knowledgeable on the history behind Palestine and Israel as much as I'd like to be. So I've been reading and learning more about the history of how these places were fabricated and how the interaction and, again, relationship has been but between them. And to me, that is like just as messed up as what's going on with Russia and Ukraine right now. And it's pretty wild. But so when I saw that this reporter had gotten shot and killed, it really, again, sparked my intrigue with learning more about it. And before I could even, really gain much more knowledge on the background with why these two groups essentially hate each other, they were having the funeral for this reporter. Well, the video from the funeral was fairly graphic, in the sense that it was just shocking. To me, I was just very surprised with what I saw. Essentially, it was Palestinians carrying this reporter's casket, and I want to make sure that I get her name right. Shireen Abu Akleh. Okay, that was the Palestinian American reporter that was killed. Well, it literally seemed like the next day, but anyway, there was video that it was her funeral procession, I think, and there were Israeli forces there, and literally it just like completely went crazy. These Israeli forces were just like beating the crap out of these people that were part of this funeral. And I don't know, I just like, I'm blown away by what is going on in the world. And then there were other videos of, I don't know if I think it was part of the funeral procession as well, but it looked like a vehicle. I don't know if there was the vehicle that had the casket in there or what, but there were Palestinian flags on the vehicle, and Israeli forces were like surrounding the vehicle and like ripping the flags off and stuff. And, I get it. Things work differently outside of the US. So I'm used to, you can see in America, you can see American flags, you can see American flags upside down, you can see American flags with blacked out with a red stripe or a blue stripe or rainbow stripes, or you can see Confederate flag flying. Yes, it upsets people, but in the US, we're used to seeing this because, again, First Amendment, freedom of speech, you just have that liberty. So to see them like ripping these flags off of this vehicle, especially as part of a funeral, I really don't understand it at all. And I guess that kind of leads into something else too. What was this? May 8th. Yeah, this blew me away. May 7th, I had tweeted out, Germany banned the Ukrainian flag. Okay, so there was, what is it called? Victory in Europe Day, I think. VE Day. Yeah, May 8th is Victory in Europe Day. So what happened was, Victory in Europe Day, VE Day, there's VE Day and VJ Day. So VE Day is, the conclusion of World War II in Europe. And then VJ Day was the conclusion of World War II in the Pacific. Anyway, Germany had said ahead of time, before the May 8th commemoration, memorial, celebration, whatever you want to call it, that they would not allow Russian symbols, such as like the letter Z, to be displayed. And then they came out and said, nor will we allow Ukrainian symbols either. I don't see, people are capable and able and should have the right to make decisions based on their own opinions, their own insight, their own intelligence. Will that be the same for everybody? No, because there are different levels of tolerance, intelligence, acceptance. What bothers some might not bother others. But so to me, this was wild that Germany, a country which, yes, they have a very sensitive history. I just think of them as a Western nation, which allows freedom. And to know that, again, I didn't realize it, I think until I was in Germany for the first time ever, that mentioning symbols of Nazi party, blah, 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 all that stuff is not allowed. I guess due to the sensitivity of the past, I get it. But again, in terms of freedom of speech, that goes against freedom of speech, right? And so that was one thing, whatever. But then when I saw that they were going to say no to the Ukrainian flag, I just, like, it blew my mind, like how they, I don't understand. Again, maybe I'm hypocritical because did I have a problem with them like banning the letter Z? Not really. But again, at the same time, would I rather, how about this? Would I rather Germany have banned Russian and Ukrainian imagery together or neither at all? I would actually say I would prefer them to not ban either. I would be okay if they said, you know what, it's going to look super messed up, but yeah, if you want to carry the letter Z around, go ahead. If you want to carry the Ukrainian flag around, go ahead. But I would honestly prefer that than saying you cannot display this at all. Yeah, so one of the images, if you're watching, one of the images that I saw was a very massive Ukrainian flag. I don't know what it said on there, but the video, if you're not watching, the video it looks like some type of protest or mass gathering of people. You can see some people have Ukrainian flags draped over themselves as like a garment. I don't see personally any Russian symbols or anything. This guy's carrying a flag. Yeah, it's a lot of Ukrainian flags, but gigantic Ukrainian flag is just being bundled and balled up by, it looks like a number of German police officers. So, I mean, they were enforcing to a degree what imagery you could and couldn't have. But yeah, there's tons of Ukrainian flags there. So I'm guessing it was just kind of a, pick and choose. They're going to say this, but I just couldn't believe that. The reason I don't like the banning of it is probably the same argument for those that would say you should ban it, because what I don't like is by banning it, and you see these videos of, German police wrapping up this Ukrainian flag, it almost looks like they're taking a knee to Russia. Now, again, those would, on the other side of the argument, I bet you might say, well, if you banned it, or if you allowed it, then you would see them walking down the street with the letter Z painted across their shirt. And would that not be the same? I'd give it to you. Yeah, you can make the argument both ways. Again, I'm not going to change your beliefs. I'm not going to change your well, maybe I would change your thought process. I'm not trying to. I'm just giving you guys my opinions. But to me, I would rather allow all imagery rather than banning none, because, allow all imagery than banning it all, because give people more credit, right? I believe, if somebody sees a Nazi flag flying in somebody's yard, 99% of people, including myself, are going to look at that and say that's wrong. This person has problems. They need help. There's something that's not right. It's not acceptable. They are morally corrupt, right? I believe 99% of people would agree with me on that. But because of that, shouldn't, you know, do you have to make it illegal to say they can't have that posted? They can't have that flag flying. Do you have to make it illegal? Because yeah, a vast majority of us know that that's messed up. But at the end of the day, as humans, don't we have the right, again, freedom of expression? Maybe I'm way too American in this sense, but I don't know. It's been something that's been a little frustrating to me is that. And then, yeah. Oh, and by the way, so Putin has his own VE day. They have their own victory day. I think it must be May 9th. Again, making it about Russia, making Russia is its own thing. Okay, so again, let's get into that like ideology of essentially brainwashing on a national scale. Came across this video on May 8th of, it looks like a school, a young school. I don't know age, like, I don't know, third grade or less. These look like young kids and they're all marching. Looks like at their school in little military uniforms, and some are wearing little costumes with airplanes and tanks built on them. And the tank has a big letter Z, and it's just, it seriously feels like, you know, I wasn't there back in the, 20s or 40s when these wars were happening, but I feel like that's where we are. And it's so sad to think that we have, we've made all these advances in humanity, but have we really? Like, look at what is happening, you guys. I don't know. Something on the plus side, though, if you haven't heard of the little dog Patron. Patron is a bomb-sniffing dog in Ukraine, and what was it, during the victory in Europe celebrations, little Patron received a presidential medal. I don't know if it's like the Medal of Freedom or what the medal is, but yeah, he received like one of the highest honors in Ukraine for his contributions to the war effort. So that was kind of some good news to see little Patron getting recognition. Love that dog, so cute. But yeah. So I mean, there's some things that are happening in the world that can bring a smile to your face, like something like that, or something like if you're on Twitter, go ahead and follow UA Memes Forces. It's Ukrainian Memes Forces. So they've got, they add some humor to the travesties that are going on in Ukraine at the hands of Russia. But I think that speaks volumes to the spirit or attitude or outlook of the Ukrainian people. Yeah, can't say enough about it. This might sound very contradictory, but something came out on May 12th. Reading it from NBC News. President Joe Biden plans to urge world leaders to do more in the global fight against COVID as the White House struggles to secure additional funding for U.S. efforts at home and abroad. To me, I found this very interesting because I believe just a few days prior to that, we committed $40 billion to help Ukraine. So how are the best decision makers in the world, the leaders of our countries, sitting here like $40 billion for Ukraine? Holy crap, we're out of money. Can somebody give us some to help with COVID? Like, can we look at the full picture here, please? I don't know. That's just me. What else did we have here? Spain's support of Ukraine. Yeah, you can look at that's an interesting tweet. What else do we have here? Oh yeah, here was, going back to these pleas to Putin to do the right thing, feel how you will about Ukraine, but do the right thing and don't starve the world. The Kiev Independent was sourcing this from CNN. They said UN official warns Putin millions will die if Ukraine's ports remain blocked. David Beasley, head of the UN's World Food Program, told CNN that if Putin does not reopen Ukraine's Black Sea ports, it could cause a global hunger crisis and the collapse of Ukraine's economy. Kiev Independent followed that up with a quote from David Beasley, again, the head of the UN World Food Program. He said, quote, "If you have any heart at all for the rest of the world, regardless of how you feel about Ukraine, you need to open up these ports." First off, let's start with that sentence. I'm glad I found this before we ended this episode, because this one just like fired me up, okay? This is from the Kiev Independent, quoting David Beasley, head of the UN World Food Program. "If you have any heart at all for the rest of the world, if you have any heart at all for the rest of the world," talking to Putin, okay, "regardless of how you feel about Ukraine," waited to just dismiss what he's talking, what Putin's doing in Ukraine. Just regardless of how you feel about Ukraine, all right? We're not going to address that right now because that's not the problem at hand, okay? You, Putin, need to open up these ports, okay? Again, Ukrainian ports, they're basically saying like he's got the power to open them, whatever. My response to it was, quote, "If you have any heart at all for the rest of the world," end quote. Do they not know who they're speaking to? Putin does not care at all. Like, again, going back to the way beginning of this episode, these pleas to him are just laughable. This is not how you change the course of action with somebody like this. It's not. I don't know, just you just gotta bite the bullet and take action. It may not be the easiest thing, right? It's not the easy decision, but it's the right decision, So yeah, that's what I got. Who was this? Latvian Minister of Foreign Affairs had tweeted out, in 1939, it was called appeasement. In 2022, it's called face saving. Let us not make the same mistakes again. And sadly, I don't think it's not gonna change. But one thing before I pop off here, on Twitter, right? One thing that I've wondered too, and I'm really annoyed that I feel this way about it. But if you're on Twitter and you click the home button, whether you're on a computer or your mobile device, scroll up and hit the stars on the top right corner. You'll see top tweets. So that's basically the algorithm feeding you essentially what the algorithm wants you to see. Okay. Elon Musk he taught me this. You can click that and you can switch it to see latest tweets. So if you want it to go back to just chronological order, you can do that. And personally, for me, like mentally, I would prefer it to be in chronological order. But I've tried it a couple times on and off in the last day or two, and it turns out I really do like the algorithm better. But I'm glad to know that I have the choice in how I can switch it. Maybe what I need to do is not follow 1,000 other profiles, and that'll help. And then I can go back to just the chronological order. But just something I wanted to throw out there for you guys, so you know. Also, Ukraine won Eurovision. I haven't listened to a single thing from Eurovision, hadn't watched it at all, but I'm just going to say I'm not surprised one bit that they won. So congrats to them for that. Yeah. If you guys, if you want, like, if you have the thought that, geez, I really wish this war in Ukraine would be over, just know that it could be. Just know that, like, it could be over as soon as countries actually want to step up and do the right thing. But they don't, okay? They want to do the easy thing. They don't want to do the right thing. So just know that it could be over. But leaders of pretty much every country out there, aside from Ukraine, like I said, if you're ever happy with your politicians, I think you become part of the problem, right? You should never we all want to improve ourselves, right? And I think that goes twice as much for those that we elect to office. We should always demand better from them. And that's how I feel about that. You know, if we want this to be over, it can be, but they're failing to make the right decisions. So, all right. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.